I'm Kathy from Eclectic Images, and as I sit here basking in a summer sunny day, we're thinking also of all you people in the Northern Hemisphere who are in the depths of winter. So we're going to do a series of 4 tutorials focusing on Winter Wonderland as our theme. So there are going to be some wintry nights, and hopefully that'll brighten those cold days as well. So our first one is featuring our cat from the All Hallows Eve set, and we're going to give him a nice big moon and stamp some branches around. So this is just ink blending on our cotton blend cardstock, and the stamps that we're using is our winter branch, the flower border, picket fence, and the cat out of the Hallows All Hallows set. The inks we'll use is the Versafine Clair Nocturne. From Catherine Pooler, we've got some Suede shoes and Juniper mist. Plus also from one of the party collections, we've got some feisty Fuchsia and some party dress. So there's just some pinks and mauves to add a little bit of extra colour in there, and then we'll be going into the deeper blues. So let's have a look at what we're going to stamp. Now I'm going to stamp the cat and the picket fence first, so I can then sort of build some bits around them. But the picket fence is actually an outline stamp. So I'm going to stamp it on once I've finished throwing it around. I'm going to stamp it on and then colour it in later. Because I suddenly decided I wanted a silhouette of a fence, and I don't have one of those in the range, so I thought, what can we do? And that's often the case with our stamps, that we think we want to create something, and then we've got to think, well, what have we got in our stash that we can do that with? And you know, usually you've got something in the stash. Of course, if you haven't, you're very welcome to go to the Eclectic Images website and buy heaps and heaps of stamps, because we love it when you do that. Was that too much of a plug? Okay, there's our picket fence. Now we're going to pop the cat on top of the fence. He'll be tucked in behind the pickets. I'm imagining that there's another cross rail in there for him to sit on. So I'm going to do this one with our stamping platform or a MISTI tool, so that way we can place him right where we want him to be. And because I want him to be really solidly black, I might need to stamp him a couple of times. Actually, I could do him after I've done all the colouring, and then I wouldn't have to worry about anything smudging. That's a plan. Let's do some colouring first. Matthew's looking at me like, is she going to pull the pin on this one, or is she going to keep going? Is this one for the bloopers reel, or do we just mosey ahead? Let's keep going. Unless my rambling means that we go over time, we'll keep going with this one. Okay, going to apply our ink colours with our number 10 brushes. And I'm also going to use some of a blending brush as well. We've got sets of those, or them in sets of 2 of this size, or sets with multiple sizes. So I'm just going to come on from the edge of my card, and then I'm putting a bit of pressure on the brush so that I actually get some lines coming on. I don't want it all smooth. What I'm trying to create is some wispy clouds across the moon. Now we pick out our feisty fuchsia. And again, that's not feisty fuchsia, that is lots of Queen for a Day coming off my brush. Never mind. How much more can go wrong with this one, this tutorial? Let's see how we go. Can I muck it up anymore? I do have a mask here that I've cut out of acetate and popped a little bit of double-sided tape on the back, just so I can stick that where I want it. Let's place it on. And then we're going to start shading around. Now, I don't think I'm going to put any extra colour on my brush. It's obviously got plenty. So let's just shade that around. Making sure that we get down in amongst those pickets as well. All the way around. taking it a little bit further than where I want it so I can blend some blue in over the top of it. So now I'm going to switch to Suede shoes and my blending brush that I've had blue on. Now these brushes you can just, I usually, if I'm changing colours, just wipe them out on a bit of a damp cloth and then a dry cloth, and then you're right to go with your next colour. You don't have to stop and wash them. They're very dense bristles, so if you did wash them they would take forever to dry. Now start off the page so that I'm not, you can touch your brush to your page or you can just start on your scrap and then start rubbing on. You just don't want to go directly from the ink pad to your page or you'll get a blob. So we're blending that down into the colour that's a cross between Fuchsia and Queen for a Day. Now I'm going to keep this blue a little bit softer and then we'll come in with a deeper blue on the outside of the card. So a little bit down the sides. I don't mind that I'm going over the top. Oh, we've got a little bit too much light there. Let's put a bit of blue in there. Don't mind that I'm going over the picket fence because I'm going to be colouring that in later with a black marker. But what I do need to is to get some colour in through the pickets of the fence. Now I find when I'm using these blending brushes which do have a flexible handle, they're designed so that you can, they suit all sorts of people's way of using them, depending on, you know, some people if they've got a bit of arthritis in their hands find it easier to hang on to it by the handle. I tend to be a bit enthusiastic about my brushing and I have on one of them broken a handle, so I tend to rest a finger on the top there just to take some of the pressure, or I'll hang on to the edge of the brush, whatever I'm finding the most comfortable on the day. For this today I'll hang on to the edge because it means my hand is a bit less in your way as you're trying to watch. Let's go up the edge there. Now we're going to grab the Juniper Mist and really darken the outer edge of that off. So this time I'll go back to one of my number 10 brushes because I'll get more intensity of ink with this, or you could use a smoothie sponge. So rather than on gloss card where I do a pouncing, on matte card I more smudge it. I find that gives more intensity of colour and gets the colour on a bit quicker. And it's always fine to move your card around so that you stay working at an angle that's comfortable for you. What you don't want to with something like this is to get around here and be smudging awkwardly and end up getting blobs of ink on your card. So when I first start putting a bit of this colour on, I'm right almost off the edge of the card and then smudging it on. Once I've built up some colour, I can be more directly onto the card itself. Like on these corners where I want it really dark. I've already got enough ink there that I don't have to waste ink on the side of my card. I can just come directly into it. All the way down. We don't need to go all the way down that fence post because it'll be coloured in, but let's get in between them down the bottom there. And what's in this corner? Now the reason why I've used the Versafine Clair to stamp the picket fence and because I'm wanting to go over it with the marker pen, but also we're going to flick some water onto the card and I don't want that stamped image smudging. So I needed to use something like the Versafine or the Catherine Paula Midnight or an archival ink, something that's not going to smudge when we put water on. Right, let's take our mask off and see what we've got. Apart from having very inky fingers, we'll see what else we've got. So I'll just separate that out so I can peel it off. And that is the look we wanted. So a bit of smudgy cloud over the moon, and then our deeper shading around it. I'll just give my mask a quick clean before I pop it away so I don't pick it up and straight away put other inks on it another time. Right, now we're going to flick some water on that. So to do this, I'm going to use my fan brush and I'm just going to pool a bit of water on my mat there. So I'll just spritz a little bit of water on. I find the fan brush gives me, you can just spritz the card with water, but I find I get a better result with the fan brush and a bit more control with it. So then I'm just going to flick it. So I'm just tapping, pick up a bit more water if I need it, and I'm going to go all the way around. And we'll leave it, so the Catherine Pooler inks are water reactive, which means this water's going to have an effect. So let it sit there for a moment. I can dry that bit of craft mat off and I can have a look for where I've put my bit of paper towel. So once it's sat there for a moment, if we then lay some paper towel over the top, once we lift that off, it lifts the colour out of those spots. And we've given ourselves a starry or a snowy night, however you want to look at it. Pretty cool, hey? Now, let's just make sure there's no water residue on that by giving it a quick dry. And we're going to bring up our stamping platform. Just put my working mat in underneath me as well. And we're going to stamp in our cat. Now I know his tail might come off the end of the card, so I'm going to actually put the card in sideways. Sounds a little bit odd, but stick with me. Now find my little cat, line him up where I want him. So that's tucking in behind the pickets of the fence a bit. And yes, his tail is going off the edge there. Okay, pick him up with the platform. Making sure my card's all nice and secure. Now ink up with the Versafine Clair Nocturne. Get him nice and inky, but I am prepared that it may take a couple of inkings to get him as deep as I want him, because I want him really, really black. So press it down and let it sit there for a moment. It's a pigment ink, so let it sink into the card and do its job. Pretty good, but I am going to go over one more time, so I'm just checking that my card is snugly still in that corner. We'll ink him again. And this is where you hope your card's in the right place, because if your cat's not in the right spot after you've done all your background, magnificent. That has come up beautifully. Keep him a little clean. And our other stamps that we're going to use are the flower border and the winter branch. And I'm just going to use those on blocks. Let's pop him back in. Here's our flower border. I'll keep inking up with the same ink. Keep it consistent. Stamp that across the bottom of the card, and I'm going to be looking, because I know these are going to be black, I'm looking so that I have a few fronds of flowers that are going to show between the pickets. Again, let it sit for a moment, and then we get a good black image. This is a great stamp, this one. I like the different heights of the flowers. And the other great one that we've had for a long time in our range, and it always comes back and gets used over and over again, is the winter branch. Doesn't that look great? Now we could just have it on the one side. That looks really good, but I am going to bring it in on the other side a bit as well. I've actually got a little smudge there that I'm not 100% happy with, so I'm going to make sure that we get a bit of branch going over the top of that. And now I think we need a little bit coming in. Just to fill out that top bit there. That's really cool. Now we'll do some colouring. So I'll get my Pentel brush marker in the black and we'll colour in these fence posts. Because you can see at the moment our cat's looking like he's sitting in mid-air. Now I can choose to colour the whole thing, but I'm going to leave a little bit of a highlight, which we'll probably pick out with some white pen as well. But it's just going to create a look that we've got a little bit of a highlight from the moon onto our fence post. Make sure I get right down to the edge of the card. I'm going to turn my card around so that I'm pushing the nib of the brush right up to the edge of that stamped image, and that makes my colouring much quicker and more accurate. And you can see we're going to end up with some little fronds of our flower border showing in between those pickets. Now I'm going to try and do this as quick as I can, which might lose a bit of accuracy, but I'm actually wanting to not spend all of this demonstration colouring. Turn around, come back up the other side. Just remembering when I start getting near the top, leave a little white highlight. Can't be too much because we've got a cat's paw in there. Make sure we get all those little cross braces. Again, spin the card around so you're butting your brush right up against that edge, and you can see how quickly you can just sweep along. Hopefully, have we got some background music playing there, Matthew? Oh, good. Isn't it funny? Once you start colouring, you often stop talking. Not that I actually often stop talking.
Possibly comment.
Get yourself into way too much trouble there, hey? And just push that off the edge of the page as well. Wonderful, that's our fence done. And so now it looks like I had a silhouette stamp of a fence all the time. Of course. Now I'm just going to get my white gel pen and add a few little highlights to some of these branches, just where a bit of moonlight might be touching them. So you can do this as little lines or some dots. If I wanted it to look snowy, I'd actually sit them on top of the branches, but I want it to more look less like some little highlights. And we'll do the same with I want to do the same on the cat, but I'm a bit nervous about it. And I've got a bit of ink on my hands, so I'm just giving my hands a quick clean. I don't want to smudge ink in where we don't want it. Okay, let's get brave and do, tell you what, I'm just going to put a bit of paper across those as I'm leaning on them, so I'm not leaning my hand in there. I might save and do his highlights with a bit of glitter, I think. So let's just give the fence post some. I've just got to picture where that one is around the cat. And some in the flowers. What really makes these cards is building up your layers. like building up some background colours, putting in the splattering, giving a few little highlights. Just lifts it that little bit. And now I want to add some glitter around the edge of the moon. I'm going to use the Twinkle. On my sample one, I actually experimented with about 4 different Stickles colours, so I got the one that I liked the best. And the one I like the best is Twinkle. And I'm going to pop it on, but I've got a spare old brush just in case I want to blend a little bit out. So let's pop it on our cat first. I'll just test it and make sure it's running. It is. So let's pop a little bit up where he'd be getting hit by a bit of moonlight. And I'm just going to grab my brush just blend that out a little bit. You can even lift a bit off if you've got too much on. It's a bit overwhelming in his ears, so we'll just take a little bit off there. Okay, now let's run around the edge of our moon with a bit of the same glitter. And I'm just going to have to go between the branches a little bit. And again, just come in with our brush. You don't have to do this, but I don't want a solid line on the edge of the moon, so I just want to soften it into the card a little bit. Very pretty. Okay, now we'll clean that brush off fairly quickly so that it doesn't get that glue hardening on it, and let's move our card over onto our tablecloth so you can have a closer look at it. And there we go. So that's our little cat looking up at the moon with some winter branches and flowers around. Really pretty. Of course, it would work on gloss card as well as the matte cardstock. We just switch around some of the inks a little bit, but I do quite like it. On the matte cardstock is when we can do those water splattery effects, which I really like. Okay, thank you for joining me for this one. That's our first one in our Winter Wonderland series. I'll see you again hopefully for the second one soon. Okay, bye.